Cass is not on audio yet.
Oh, I see it.
Nice to meet you. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good. Thank you. You're new to Literature and Materials 4, huh?
I am. I think that I was given this class because there were certain classes I needed to take to graduate, and Dana just said, well, this will qualify instead. So that is why I am here.
All right. Are you a music major though, or?
I am music and worship.
All right. So, Dr. Franzen, you want to introduce yourself, and then I introduce myself, and then we'll tell Cass what this is going to be about. By the way, there should be more people coming. Don't know why they're not here.
Yeah.
But so it goes.
The first day of this class. So yes, hello. I'm Lars Franzen, as you can see. So Carlos, will you sign out, or will you talk a little bit later, or what?
I'll stay. I mean, you
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So hi, Cass. We'll see if more people are joining us, but as you know, these classes are being recorded, so a lot of people will undoubtedly check in later just to review the recordings. And that we have, I know we have a backlog of people who are not registered yet for a variety of reasons, and we'll see where we end up. I mean, we'll know more by next week. If you don't mind, let me know a little bit about who's your advisor, by the way. It must be Vilana, right?
My advisor is Autumn.
Okay. And
yeah, there were a lot of emailing going back and forth between Autumn and Dana. But yeah.
What I'm just trying to figure out here, you said something about grad studies that I didn't really understand.
I think it's just that what I meant is that this is my last semester, so in order for me to graduate with my bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And I think it was more that there was like maybe a class or two that wasn't available for me to take. And so in the emails between Autumn, my advisor, and Dana, they were just trying to say, okay, if this class isn't available, what can she take in place of it? And I think they came to the conclusion that this is one of the classes that I should take. I don't exactly remember which class it was meant to replace, but yes. My name is Cassidy, by the way. You can call me Cassidy or Cass. I think I just put Cass because it was quicker.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to figure out, because part of this class is highly technical.
Okay.
And that's not your fault per se, but we're going to try to figure out what you know about. I mean, it's mainly the music theory part of it that is.
I see.
Let me ask you a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, I did take up to Theory 4, but if I'm honest, the skills are not really there. I mean, they're not absent at all completely, but I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm super great at that type of stuff.
Because it seems, I mean, this was a thing of the past that sometimes we had an advisor who just stuck people in wherever it fitted into their schedule, thinking that, we could sort of just take people aside, which we can't really do that much anymore, and just teach them a whole track of courses on the side. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you can do that. I mean, and I used to do that. I used to teach from 9 a.m. Okay, Carlos. So I'll try to figure this out.
If you guys want to continue this conversation, though, I can put you in a breakout room so that you can talk at leisure while more students come in, and I just talk about the history portion of it.
Okay, if you're doing that, then
yeah, I mean, it's easy to do so that you can still keep talking about this. So
let me see if I don't have a break. That's because I'm on my iPad and you're on your computer, so you can do breakout rooms.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so these are all new students.
Yeah. Ali, well, Jewel is not. Jewel is a veteran.
Hi,
Jewel.
Favorite, of course, but I've never had.
Hi.
Hey, Jewel. So who did Jewel, just while we're at it, all of us, who did you have for Siri? Because I remember, I mean, you've been here for a while.
Who did I have for theory last semester?
Yeah. Who did you have for theory, for music theory?
Last semester I had Terry Green. Now I have Tammy Lee.
Terry didn't teach theory, so that's.
Oh wait, no, that was air training. I'm sorry. I don't think I took theory yet. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, you haven't had any theory lessons at all, no?
Wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm at work right now, so I'm kind of because I just got my schedule
So
yesterday.
I'll reply for Jewel.
Thank you.
Jewel
We had it with
has
Christoph. Yeah.
taken theory with me.
Okay, okay.
I got
from
that
the-
mix of literature and materials. I'm sorry.
From the beginning.
Aha. Okay.
And then she was your
Where's
student,
Deborah
Dr.
Prince?
Franzen, last semester.
Sorry, guys. I was mixing up my classes.
It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. Just go.
Now I remember because I don't have my book right here. Yes, Jewel, I remember that. We had a quite lengthy text message exchange. Now I remember.
Yeah.
That's-
So anyway, Dr. Franzen, if you want, you can with Cassie go to an open room right now, to a breakout room if you want.
Yeah, but I'll probably need to because there was one more who checked in whose name I didn't recognize.
Arelis, no, I think she changed the name. Hi Arelis, how are you?
Hey everyone. I don't know why it's using my personal email.
Yeah,
But,
we didn't recognize your name, but that's you're
All right, but
you're part of this.
good here.
Yeah.
Fine. Jayla, of course, I know I talked to her this morning. Okay, so let me do a breakout with Cass and is your name Cassidy, you said?
Yep, it's Cassidy. Maybe I should change my name, but I mean, some people call me Cass.
Right.
All right.
You're Cassidy that we know from from you've been I mean you studied voice with my wife, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
All
okay.
right. There you guys
Good.
go.
Let me yep.
All right.
Okay, so he disappeared.
Well, they're in a breakout room. They need to talk
Oh.
about stuff. All right, Athalia, how are you? It's good to see you. Hi, Jayla as well. Good. All right, good. Jayla, how's it going?
Athalia.
It's going well.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello. All right, it's good to see you guys. This is your second to last semester of L&M. How do you guys like that? Almost done.
Thank God.
Second
So
to
happy.
last. Second to last. This is the
Wait,
last.
we have 5 of these courses?
You have 5 of these courses.
Oh my goodness. I thought we were done this semester. I'm weak.
Wouldn't it be nice, right?
Yeah.
No. This is the next semester. It's mostly going to be a lot of reviewing stuff for us to make sure you're graduating with all the knowledge that you need to graduate. So I don't anticipate it to be as brutal as the last 3 semesters have been, but you know, so there is a little bit of a pause next semester, just an easier ride, which makes the semester interesting then. So as you all probably know, I will be taking care of the history session. I'm actually battling some health issues, so it's a little bit fuzzy for me today. It's been fuzzy for the past couple of weeks actually, but you know, we'll have a very short session today, and here they are, and they're back. You're muted, Dr. Franzen.
Do we have any clarity on, I know we have.
You are still muted, Professor Franzen.
Last day of classes as Friday.
It does that
I hate when
automatically
that happens.
when you leave the breakout room. Anyway, we've all sorted out. It's all good. I know who Cass is. It's Cassidy, Christina's student, and Glaucus theory student. So all is good. All is good.
Welcome, Cassidy, to our loving arms.
Thanks.
I'm serious, people. Welcome, Cassidy, to our loving arms.
Welcome, Kaz.
Hey, Arelis.
Hey, it's been forever.
Yeah.
Well, Arelis is the spokesperson for this class, I suppose. Anyway, so I was just gonna say that this semester we're going to sort of keep going on into the historical aspect will be the Romantic period. It will align very nicely with everything you're doing in theory, because now you're really taking a very heavy look at what sort of like made harmony the language to expand and express all the human emotions through Western art, music that people might conceive of, and how this tension between not tonalities, obviously, but this harmonic tension is what actually gave people a lot of tools to voice what they were feeling. So Dr. Franzen is going to take care of that. He will talk about that much more eloquently than I can. But as far as I am concerned, I really want to keep going onto that path of looking at the development of harmony and what harmony meant socially. And and also in relation to sort of the colonial sort of relationships of the 19th century between Europe and the rest of the world that are worth sort of keeping an eye on. But one of the things that I really, really, really want to study this semester is the development of nation and the idea of the nation state and how music helped to create that model, but also for us not to take for granted the idea of that nation and nationalism are inherently or only quote unquote good things, but that there are things in construction that can be manipulated for very nefarious ends, as we have experienced in the past 2 weeks, especially on January 6th, right? So I think this is one of the most exciting time periods. It's philosophically, also economically, and everything that happened that is affecting us today arguably can be traced from the from the 15th, 16th century, but it really takes off in earnest by the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the end of the 18th century and everything else that happened after that. So that's me, and that's how we're going to do it. For some housekeeping issues, did anyone have problems with the E360 website? Anyone did not find what they needed? Did everyone find the syllabus? Did everyone find the links? You're obviously here, so I suppose you did. Any questions about E360 or history portion of things?
Well, the interface looks really nice now. They changed it.
They changed it and it's nice, but you know what? It's not that nice for faculty because now you have to do 3 things to make things look prettier. So because I was running out of time and frankly patience, you have a very plain looking welcome page. I'm sorry. No pictures this time. No GIFs. But
Wait, no GIFs?
Well, I'll
Oh wait, I
figure
thought it
out.
was GIFs.
It's supposed to be GIFs, I think. Anyway, that's a discussion for our other class terminology. But in the meantime, yeah, all the links are working. Please download these links to your calendars so that you can just one tap away and you're directly in to the Zoom link. And if you have problems with schedules or anything that you need to talk to us, please let us know, all right? All right, so Dr. Frentzen, take it away.
I'll set the record straight. It is GIF because it's graphic, so it's not giraffic. So it is GIF.
Oh man.
Really, but now you know, Araldis. Every day is a school day.
Yeah.
The way
I don't
you
know
say-
why people say GIF then. I don't get it.
Well, you have to have a foreigner tell you how English is pronounced, right?
True.
So, however that G, if it's a hard G, which it is in this case, it's graphic, then it's GIF.
A GIF.
Get it?
A GIF.
That's going to be on the final exam.
I get it.
This is primarily an English course, Anyway, yes, thank you. Let me just give a shout out to my dear former student, now colleague and superstar, Carlos Cuestas. He's actually
Very
diagnosed
kind.
COVID-19. He's been very sick for 2 weeks and he's now recovering. So prayers to you, my
You
friend.
had COVID-19?
Yes, I am a public threat at the moment. So.
Oh my gosh, so dangerous, exciting.
Yeah, but it's been wild. So if you
Feel
can,
better.
please take
You-
care of yourselves. What's up, Jill?
I feel
He's-
better.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
feel better. This
yesterday
is
you
good
had
for character development.
exactly. Yesterday you had a temperature of 102.5.
It's a record in my lifetime. So
Exactly.
please take care of yourselves. Don't take this for granted. I am a 35-year-old person. I'm not that young, but I'm pretty young.
No, that's still young. That's very young.
Thank you, and it's kicking my behind.
Yeah.
So please take care of yourselves. Please take care of yourself.
Mhm.
So here's how this works. If you have any sort of any other physical challenges, and if you're not as young as Carlos, this has a very, very good chance of wiping you out completely, as many of you know already from your families. So I mean, it's very serious, and you're a brave soul, Carlos, because you know I know when I'm sick like that's I'm not in a good place. I usually go to bed for 3 days and hope for the best, just to sustain myself on water. You know, it's a good.
Same.
Yeah. No, thank you. I mean, it's duty not only calls, but you guys are worth it. So, here's to a good semester, all of you.
Did you get the vaccine, or is that still like a scary concept?
No, I was gonna get it on Sunday, but now I'm in the back of the line because we have immunity, so they have to prioritize.
Yeah.
Maybe
people
it's
who-
God's protection. You never know what's in that vaccine. Like I'm still kind of like iffy because
It will be fine. We should all get vaccinated when we can.
Yeah.
It's for health purposes, and if we want to have these conversations live in the beautiful building that we call our home or second home or school, that is the way to do it. Hopefully by the fall we'll be all together. But anyway,
Yeah,
Dr.
I hope
Franzen,
so.
do carry on.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what's ahead of us, because we gotta get this jump started. I know that we're probably not the full class at the moment, but it's being recorded, and the rest of the students will be able to review and will pick up. But just so you know, so the first order of business is basically two things, because I will be lining up with Professor Margaret much more carefully and diligently than we've been able to do in the past. So two things today. We got to do some clef reading, meaning C clefs. So we got to get our hands on what that is, and then Professor Margaret will follow up, and she's also going to do some atonal sight reading with you. Not scary things. You're not going to be reading, just knowing where the notes are on the keyboard.
Sorry
And,
to interrupt you for just a second, but those of you who were in my ear training class, now is the time to shine, people, because you did interval sight reading and you did clef sight reading. So this is you now, guys. I'm counting on you.
this is it. It's not scary. I'll break it down. There's a great sort of method to it, how to decipher this. And then the other thing that we got to get rolling right off the bat is what we call augmented sixth chords. So this is where the exciting part of harmony sort of meets with music history, because we can offer opinions, we can interpret history and all that, but we have to see how all this is played out in actual music, in actual art. I mean, rather than just talking about opinion, we're going to demonstrate how all these things that we have come to assume about music, the tonal expectations, how they are now in the sort of mid-19th century are being exploited, because we do have expectations of how certain things, a certain order of notes that we take for granted, and how these expectations are being deliberately set aside or thwarted, as we say, like our expectations are being fulfilled by something else. Let me give you a literary example. If I say roses are red, And you say violets are,
Blue.
yeah. And if I say roses are red, violets are very expensive, then that makes as much sense, but it's not what we expect necessarily,
Mhm.
because we expect two adjectives to be competing here, red and blue. And then if we're changing the subject, really, that's called a non sequitur. And today, okay, Carlos, see you later, right?
Bye, guys. Good to see you all.
Goodbye. Feel better.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Have a good lesson.
So we're going to demonstrate that. And what I'm going to do it in a way that's a little bit different to what I normally do. Normally I start with the big picture, you know, the big overview, cultural overview, and then I sort of break it down gradually into the component parts. It's almost like, I mean, how I liken this is very often as follows. If you look at a TV screen, if you zoom away from a TV screen, it's very easy to see the image that is being projected on that screen. If you move closer and closer to the screen, you will see that, in fact, that image that we perceive as a unit, you know, as one thing, in other words, that is composed of a whole bunch of dots that are either green, yellow, or blue, and all other colors and all other sort of shapes that we perceive as one thing. The eye sort of has this ability to chunk together and create an image. That's actually something that the brain does. So looking at an image on a TV screen is an easy thing to do. Understanding why a particular dot needs to be yellow is a more complicated task usually. But I'm going to start in reverse. So I'm going to start with the dots and then gradually zoom out more and more and more so we get the full image. Because sometimes it's easier to say, okay, let's just start by drawing up a whole bunch of yellow dots. So we know this color is yellow, here's a dot, it has to have that size and all that. So we're going to start in the detail and then work our way backwards. It's actually, those of you who had me before for a teacher in whatever course, you know that I make a lot of analogies to cooking. First of all, because it's something that we all do. Secondly, it's something that I am a great admirer of people who can cook. I cook a little bit, but my wife is an excellent chef, and it's something that we do together. My part of that equation is more menial. She's the cook, but I like to be her sort of sous chef and prep her ingredients, and then she put them all together. So a cooking analogy would be like this. You can start with ingredients and boil them all together and create a soup stock. You probably all have tried that and made, let's say, chicken soup, for instance. Take a bunch of chicken parts, the meat, the bones, different things, and vegetables. And you put it all in a pot of water and you boil it and boil it and boil it and boil it, right? So at a certain point, all these tastes are sort of congealing. They're sort of merging together as one thing. And you can keep boiling this soup down. That's called reduction. So you can reduce it down to a soup stock, right? So you have a little stock cube from which you can make soup. That's the way that stock cubes are actually made. You know, that you just boil it long enough and eventually all the water evaporates and you only have taste left. Only the tasty parts are left. And then, so that's kind of how soup stocks are created. You can also start in reverse. That's what we're going to do for this section here. You can start with the soup stock, right? And add water to it and thin it until you get a soup. And then you can add your own ingredients to that. You can add, you know, whatever vegetables or meats or grains or whatever you want to add into that soup stock is possible. So what we're going to do today is to do something very atomized. We're going to start with the little building blocks of music and then gradually, as the semester unfolds, we're going to trace the roots of these harmonic procedures more and more and more. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to switch. Those of you who've had me before, you know that at a certain point, I sort of switched from my introduction. I'm sitting down in my office right now. You can see the wonderful Lower Manhattan and my bicycle.
Whoa. What
It's in the
building are
back.
you in?
Yeah. So I'm actually down on campus for a number of reasons. It's nice to be here. We have a nice office. We have internet. And I have a board. I have all of that at home too. And sometimes I'll be teaching from home. But it is nice to be down here and do all the things from down here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my picture off for, 10, 15 seconds and set up shop at the board on the wall and explain certain things. Okay? I'm going to take the sound off as well. So I'll be
Okay.
back with you in 15, 20 seconds or something. Stand by.
So, hey everyone. Cass, Jewel, Athalia. How's everyone doing? Okay.
Hi, Rosemary. How are you?
Doing good. Today's my brother's birthday, so I'm just kind of like, oh, I have class on this day, and like he does too, like in the morning. So I'm just kind of like, this is really like not uncomfortable, but like it's kind of like
You'd rather not have
disorienting.
class.
Yeah. Yeah. At least for like birthdays, I feel like when everyone has like a birthday, they should be, granted like a day off on their birthday.
I think Lars is back.
Oh, yeah.
I am back, and but it's great that you guys are talking amongst yourself. That's fantastic, and it's one of the things that we can do. Actually, I really love this way of teaching. I have to say, I think it's more flexible. That's just me. Maybe I think other people like it too, but it's more flexible. And the fact that you can record it and you have some measure of control over the recording that is done from one central source and then it's posted, as you well know by now, to YouTube in a channel that Carlos and I have created. I like that. I think it's a good idea that people can sort of review the lessons when they want to. Obviously, the one-on-one is probably the ideal because you can sort of learn things in real time and ask questions in real time. That's why we are live streaming it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to explain how the C-clef works and what a C-clef is.
Is it the treble?
This is a treble clef, and it's also called a G-clef, and it's called a G-clef because the center of this it also looks like a G. If I did this, it would look kind of similar, right? If I just add this to it. So that's a G clef, and that sort of slings itself around, it should have a little extension there, around the note G. So that locks in the note G. That's a G clef, yeah? It's also called a treble clef, but G clef is another word for it. This one here is called the bass clef. And that locks in this note, as you can see. And that's the note F. So here's G, and here's the note F. So these are the two clefs that we know. And then we have a C clef. It looks roughly like this. I mean, this is a sort of an old-fashioned way of writing it in sort of handwriting. It looks like that, or at least in my version of it. Sort of 18th century Baroque C clef. And that locks in, as you can see, this line here. And this one is a C. Now, so far so good, right? There's nothing extravagant or difficult to understand about this. Now, being able to read in different clefs, that's probably a skill that needs a lot of practice. And we might not get there to be able to read fluently. Quite honestly, I don't consider myself a fluent reader of C clefs. When I read scores, I transpose. I'll be dead honest with you, I really do it. and I think most people who are not conductors, who read orchestral scores all the time, and by that I mean all day long, you really have to have a lot of experience with this to be able to read fluently. And that's fine, as long as we understand what C clefs do. So this note, in this clef, that note is a B, yeah? In the C clef, that is the note C. In the bass clef, this would be a D. So you see the problem, right? You just have to know that wherever these two guys are meeting, that will be here, that is the note C. That's why it's called the C clef. This one here is also called the viola clef.
So like
And-
alto?
Yeah, alto clef, or because the viola is the alto instrument in the group, the family of strings, right? The violin is the soprano. I guess you can say the second violin I'm talking about the string quartet.
Mhm.
The second violin is probably a mezzo soprano, usually. I mean, although they can play in the same range. The viola is the alto, and the cello would be the tenor or the bass, right? Sometimes you add a bass to that to have a true bass. So that's called the viola clef or the alto clef. And simply put, wherever these two prongs meet, that's the note C. Now, you can also move this one up so you have this one, and that is now the note C, right? But as you can see, I've moved the clef, and that is the whole thing about C clefs, that you can move them up or down, usually up. These are the two clefs that you're going to come across the most, so we're going to start there. So basically, the way my strategy for doing that, or for reading C clefs, is that I think one step up compared to the G clef. Does that make sense?
I have a question. For like, so when everyone starts, the musician is reading the thing, everything is like, from your perspective, that's like, because I'm trying to think in terms of like singing as well, and like do, it just keeps moving up or downwards, like depending on like whether it's treble, bass, soprano, or like alto clef or something.
Mhm.
Like, does it how would you know to like for example, if I were to see like a bass clef, how would I know it's F? Or like if I were to just so it sticks and I don't forget, at least for like the ones that you've just mentioned, like the C clef.
Well, you see the clef, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you see this clef, you will know that everything is calibrated so that this one here is an F, right? Do you understand?
Yeah.
If it was in the C clef, I mean, let me give you an example. Let's take the same note, just for the sake of it. Let's take this note here, and then carry on that throughout. In this clef, this note would be D, right?
Yeah.
Do you understand that? Because
Yes.
yeah,
That
okay.
treble. Yeah. D.
Yep. And in this clef, it will be the note F. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And in this clef, in the C clef or the viola clef, here this is called the cello clef, by the way,
Mhm.
or tenor. So there you have, you see that these names are soprano, bass, alto, and tenor. We're just not doing them in the sequence from low to high or whatever.
Oh,
What note would this be in that clef?
in this clef?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking. So, well, if this is F, is well, by process of elimination. D.
Compare
A?
to G clef. This one here would be a D normally, right?
Yeah.
This clef, but here you're thinking a step up because every B is a C, so to speak. That means every C is a D, and that means that every D is an E. Yeah?
Oh, yeah, like, so it's wherever it starts, that's the new C, right?
Yeah, I mean, this one here is a C,
Mhm.
That's normally a B. So you just transpose one step up. That is quite honestly the way I do it.
Yeah, that
because-
makes a lot more sense.
I think it makes sense. It's not the sanctified sort of superstar way of doing it, but that way we may arrive at the end, not in the beginning. Right now, this is a good entry to think I'm transposing up one step. Don't worry about whether it's a whole or a half step. Do not worry about that. That's the same when you're transposing by a third. You just simply transpose by a third, and whatever kind of third that is, that's the that's the way it just apply. Let's say, for instance, if you have a key signature of two flats, like from G minor or B flat major, right?
Mhm.
Let's say that. That means that this one here is an E, but it's an E flat because every E in this key signature would be an E flat.
So it would just move up.
Yeah, you simply just transpose everything up by I. Don't worry about whether it's a whole step or a half step. In this case, it's a half step, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're just transposing up and say, okay, it's some type of E, and in this key, it will be E flat.
Okay.
Capiche?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Very good. And here you do the opposite. If you think of this clef as pushing up, and you think of this clef as pushing down,
Mhm.
that means that this one here, what note would that be then?
Then what is it? So if the third one is an E, right? So down like a C D. I think it would go back down to D, right? Well, no, because that would be.
It is a D compared to this clef,
Mhm.
but now transposed down one step.
Mm.
Because if this one here, where the prongs are meeting, if that's a C, well, that's an easy one because this is C then, right?
Yeah.
But compared, if you're comparing to this, which I mean, look, there are two things going on in this school, right?
Mhm.
We have an awful lot of singers. Not that they're awful, but we just have,
Yeah, I know.
we don't have a lot of awful singers. We have an awful lot of singers. Those are two different things, right?
Yeah. Terminology.
Yeah, exactly. It's where you put certain words makes a lot of difference, right? As we just heard before. What was it we said? GIF or GIF?
A GIF, yeah.
Okay, so it matters. So so singers are generally speaking less familiar with reading scores than our instrumentalists, and particularly keyboard players. Keyboard players would be more familiar with reading entire scores. I mean, that's why a lot of theory teachers, for instance, happen to be keyboard players, because that's what they deal with all day long. Two hands, full range of notes, and you're reading out of at least these two clefs at the same time.
Mhm.
Many singers are not doing that. If you're a male singer, you'll be reading out of this clef. If you're a female singer, you'll be reading out of this clef. Now,
Yeah.
two things going on at the school. We have 85% students are singers, and the vast majority of our students are also female. So that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our reference in this school, it happens to suit me too, because I'm a guitarist, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading out of the G clef as well. So that will be
Oh.
some that I'm very familiar with, the sort of strategies that will be well suited to a female singer, for instance, because females would be reading out of the G clef. That's why what I'm saying is that for now, maybe this will change later on, we don't know yet. Compare this to the G clef and then transpose up one step and here down one step.
Whoa. Okay. You want me to do that right now?
No, just like that's the strategy.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And
I
then
was-
this will be followed up by Professor Margaret.
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay. So
Can I
far,
ask
so
a quick-
good? Yeah.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
You were saying something about Baroque. Is that where you would see this like viola or this
No.
alto clef and tenor?
You'll see them in all styles of music. Let me just erase this, because we don't particularly need this anymore. I'm just going to erase it and talk a little bit more about the clef itself. So It's a good question. I'm not a historian on musical notation really, but I can say this, that if you have, let's say, in the 18th century, when you were handwriting music, not just with sort of sharp tools like this, but you're actually using a feather, quill, and ink. The worst thing you want to encounter as a Baroque composer are ledger lines like this, because for every note, let's say you want to write 4 notes, you need, let's say you're doing this. There's just 3 notes, right? The last thing you want is to add a lot of ledger lines. And that goes both up and down. I mean, if you're writing for the flute, for instance, you don't want this all the time. You really don't want a lot of ledger lines. It's also very cumbersome to read, in fact. So therefore, whenever it suited the Baroque composer, whenever they went above the system or below the system, what they will do instead is just simply to change the clef. Because all of a sudden you get a new set of parameters, and you see, sometimes you'll see the C clef being moved around like this because you get more space, and you can read, you can write in your handwriting, you can write in between the staff lines.
Does that correspond to C4
Yeah.
specifically? Okay.
Exactly. It's not just any C, but for now, it's most important to understand how to do this, that it's not scary. You just transpose 1 step up or 1 step down. For now.
So like whenever I see like either a treble clef, a bass clef, wherever the dot or wherever it signifies like what ledger line, that is C.
C4. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay, great.
But and thanks for that precision, Cassidy, because you're absolutely right. It is C4, which is middle C, right? But the orientation on the keyboard, I mean, look, any C is a C, right? Whether it's C4 or C5 or whatever it is, C3, is less important than the ability to, what I'm trying to do here is to sort of deconstruct this so it's not very scary. That basically we're being asked to transpose up a step or down a step. We can do that.
And when there's like a key with like a treble, like let's say like the key of F or the key of D or whatever, if I were to say the key of D or F, but like in the bass or like in the C, like C4, like it still changes, like the orientation is still change. If this makes any sense, it's still C whatever it is, except it's now in this position, like under like alto or
Yeah. But as I said, the most important thing right now is the ability to transpose up or down a step. We're not going to make it more complicated than it is. But yes, you are right that it is not just any C, it's C4. I mean, let's say I write this C clef here, this is C4. That equals this one in the G clef, right? Or if I'm in the bass clef, that will be this one here. These are all the same notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's less important, I think, than the ability to say, okay, every B is really a C when you are reading out of this clef here. Sorry, this was not precise enough. Now it is, right? So as for the physical appearance of this clef, in the print version in the 20th century, you'll see them, they look like this. I just can't do that, so it looks very nice. Maybe I'm just clumsy. I think this is far prettier.
I like the first one better. It actually looks like an instrument.
Exactly.
Too.
And that's why I don't do the print version of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, but this is in printed scores from the 20th century, you'll see this clef. It's the same thing. I just think this one looks prettier. It's easier to draw.
It
as well.
does. Yeah, it's like one / squiggle.
Yeah, it's a slash and a squiggle, right? So anyway, just remember that wherever these 2 lines or these 2 whatever squiggles are meeting, that's the note C.
Perfect.
More precisely C4, yes. Okay, so far so good?
Mm-hmm.
And the C clef you can move up or down. It can pretty much be wherever you want it to be. And that's exactly the advantage for writing in hand, that you can move the C clef up and down. People don't do that so much anymore because it's a skill that we seem to have lost and is not as necessary anymore, particularly since we're so used to reading out of printed scores, right? And some of these software programs, they don't really, there's no real need to have a transposing C clef anymore. But when you're writing in hand, then it's a good thing because you don't want to draw all these ledger lines. But
I think
now
it's very helpful.
I think so too. But it is, it's a bit of a different skill. I'll admit that. But where it matters is that if you read, for instance, most of you are going to go to grad school at some point. That's just a fact. I mean, we know that because an undergraduate degree in music is, if you aim for a professional music career, is rarely enough to create your career. And if you, let's say, if you become a teacher in the public school system, which is a great job. I mean, it's well paid. You have a pension, and you have healthcare. The pension part is more than you get as a college professor. And the pay is also more, by the way. All my students from CUNY, I taught at CUNY for 25 years, who are teaching in for the Department of Education, they make a lot more money than I do. They also work longer hours, and there's some hazard issues to be dealing with if you're teaching in a public high school.
Yeah.
You have fewer of those issues at the college level, but they certainly make more money.
Wow.
That it's a well-known fact. I think some college professors are not very willing to talk about this because as an assistant professor in most colleges, you start off with a salary that's about 20,000 less
Whoa.
public school teacher.
No way.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So my point here is that if you teach for the Department of Education, DOE, in New York City, you will probably want a graduate degree because then you can up your pay by yet another 10 or 20,000 a year. You can quite easily make upwards of 100,000 a year as a public school teacher.
Whoa.
That's a real job.
I never knew that.
Bearing in mind that an assistant professor just starting out, just after 20 years of college and a PhD and all the all the issues that are related to that, it's a very, very long road. You end up making between $37,000 and $45,000 a year. That's where you start. That's like you can well, let's not dwell too much on that because it's a sad statistic in a way. But
Yeah.
my point is that you will want a graduate degree at some point. And when you go to grad school, you have to be able to score read. Not necessarily at the piano, although some programs require that too. You have to be able to analyze scores that involve both cello clefs and viola clefs.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have a book that is like I borrowed a book from like a friend who used to take like AP music theory, and so I don't know if I could use it for this class just to like study like in my free time, but
there are many good. I mean, if you go to the syllabus, there's some really great resource. There's a good resource section there. There's a great. So go to the syllabus.
Mm-hmm.
And find a website called theoria.com.
Okay.
Or theoria.com. It's listed in the syllabus. That's a great tool for clef reading.
Okay. Theoria.com.
Theoria.com, not with the H, because if you're Spanish speaking, this has an option of Spanish and English.
Oh, okay.
So that's a great resource here. Actually, it was I think founded by I'm pretty sure by a former NIAC student, and Dean Sutali
Mhm.
had a hand in creating this.
Whoa.
That's a good website. There are many of them. There's sort of 3 new websites every week. The ones that don't work is the ones that promise you to be able to read music in 2 hours. I mean, that
Really? They say that?
I don't know. They say a lot of things. Within minutes you can play the guitar or something like that. That's rubbish. I mean,
Man.
if it was that easy, then there wouldn't be a need for college, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So once you try your hands at this, you know that it's not as easy as, but it's not as scary either as some make it out to be. It's not that we're gonna. I mean, the problem most often is that people start out with things that are too hard, and then it's difficult, and it ends up taking more time, right? So we don't want to do that. We don't want to make that mistake.
Mhm.
Okay, so far so good.
Yep.
Good. So we'll move on from clef reading. Professor Marco will follow up with this and just drill you in this stuff as needed, right? Okay, so now we're going to deal with what we call augmented 6 chords. And I'm just going to give you one of them right now and explain the mechanics, and then week by week, we're going to investigate this further and further. I'm just going to show you the mechanics of an augmented 6 chord. That's the note A flat. Here is an F sharp. And if I fill this in with 2 C's, they're both middle C, you can see that. We can see that this chord here involves an interval that we can identify as a 6th. If I count the spaces in between, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's what we call a 6th. That's not a clef.
So it's like an augmented 7th, except that instead of going 2
It's
steps.
a 6th.
Oh yeah. So instead of that, it's like, I'm thinking of this in terms of the piano, because when usually an augmented 7, you have to put the finger, like the pinky has to go on like a certain note. But with the
Right, but-
6th, it's
And
like,
augmented 7th doesn't make sense because that's an octave, right?
oh, okay.
So it's important to understand that it's a 6th. If I sort of analyze the distance between these two here, I can see that right now I have what we call a minor 6th. Okay, so that's a lowercase m. That's a minor 6th right now. Here, it is a major 6th, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll go into the mechanics of it a little bit later. And here, I've made it yet bigger. And therefore, it is an augmented 6. Sometimes you see this sign, 6 plus, meaning augmented 6th. And that's the interval between the 2 outer voices here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is what we call the Italian augmented 6 chord. I'm not going to go any further than this today. As soon as we get everyone on board, because in the beginning, it's just a matter of breaking this stuff down. And as I said, starting with the dot and then zooming out more and more and seeing what that dot does in the complete picture. Yeah.
Why is it called the Italian 6
For
plus?
now, it just is.
Okay.
That's a very poor answer, and one that I don't normally give. First of all, it's because nobody really did. So there are 4 augmented 6 chords. There's the Italian augmented 6 chord, there's the French augmented 6 chord, the Swiss, and the German augmented 6 chord. We don't need to worry about that right now. They all are pretty much the same. They're spelled in different ways. They sound different, and they have different names, but there is no sort of real agreement of why this is called the Italian, why the French is called the French, etc., etc.
Mm.
For now, and I know it's a very bad answer.
Mm. Yeah.
Partly it's because nobody knows, and therefore I don't know either. And if I claim to know, then I'm full of prunes, right? So there is no good answer to it, as far as I know, and we just have to accept at the moment. I'm just going to erase this, yeah?
Yep.
This will be in the key of C. Good place to start. Not always, but in this case, it is actually a very good place to start. And if I were to do this in different keys, all I would have to do is to apply the key signature for that particular key, and we'll get to that next time. Right now, this is where I want to leave it. Just want to leave it here, and having opened the door, that this is an augmented sixth chord because we have an interval between the two outer voices of an augmented six.
Okay, real quick.
Good place to stop. Not too much, not too little. You know where this is going. I mean, you know that the semester is going to deal with augmented sixth chords and with clef reading as the first order of business. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of other things that we'll be able to put into place once this is understood.
So this is in the key of C,
Yep.
yes, but the augmented sixth or the sixth is not dependent on like starting from C. It's from the two outer voices. So we were
Yeah.
starting from A flat.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's right. And if I were to name these as scale degrees, this would be scale degree raised 4 or sharp 4. That's how we spell it. It doesn't mean that it has to be spelled with a sharp. In this case, in this key, it is the same thing. And this one here would be what we call flat 6 scale degree in the key of C. But for the Italian augmented sixth chord, you would have 2 of the roots in the inner voices. I mean, understanding that later on, the inner voices can be the outer voices. But the easiest way to understand, I can make this very difficult. You know, that's just called
I can tell.
Yeah, that's just called bad pedagogy. Some people like that because it appears that the professor is very smart. There's actually nothing very difficult about this. There's just a whole bunch of, it's like if you're weaving a carpet, for instance, there's a lot of threads to keep track of. I understand that very well. But weaving is weaving, right? And whether you're weaving 120 different threads or 1,000 different threads, the process is really the same. It's just that if you are introducing people who are learning how to weave, or let's say you're a beginning chef, for instance, you can intimidate people by saying, okay, first day of cooking school, you're going to learn to make egg souffle. That's not easy, and there's a whole bunch of techniques that have to be, you have to have temperature. It looks easy when the chef is doing it because they've absorbed all these techniques. They know when and how much of ingredients or whatever. Temperature control is everything in cooking, really. And if you are adding more ingredient, your temperature is going to go down, etc. So it's all about temperature control and timing, right? So you can intimidate people by introducing too much information in the beginning, or have some big. I mean, I've made all the mistakes that one can make, of course, because I've been teaching for many years. And in the beginning, I remember that I used to have some big talk about the big stretches of European history and world history and whatnot, and seeing how Beethoven and Brahms and Schubert used this and how that's mirrored then in the bebop music of the mid-1950s in New York City and all that. And later on this year, I'm actually going to do a presentation on that. And I guess I assumed that students could follow all the detail. In other words, if you started with the big picture, they could see how all these dots fitted into it. And it just proved to not be the case. And understandably so. I know that if I'm learning something outside of my own field, if people introducing me to something that's too difficult to do for a beginner, then I'm not learning. I'm just admiring somebody doing it for me, right? I mean, if you're watching NBA players, for instance, play basketball, I mean, if you think that just by having watched enough basketball that you can all of a sudden dunk a basketball, it's just not the case, right? It looks easy when the professionals are doing it, but that doesn't mean that you can do it too. That's the mistake I think we often make, and the mistake that politicians, let's say, who never served in the military, they watch the Green Berets go in and take down some bad guy or whatever, rappelling down from a helicopter, while being a top sniper, who can shoot the bad guys through a little peephole like that in a ship. It looks easy when they do it because they've done it a billion times, and that's what it takes, and that's all they can do in life, right? But it's very impressive, and you think, oh, that looks easy enough. And this is kind of easy enough once you know how to do it. The proverbial sort of riding a bicycle, once you can do it, it's not a big deal really, right? And you'll never forget it. You can sort of do it again and again because you understand intuitively how it's done. But we have to understand, there are certain things that are just best left in terms of just saying, okay, we're going to break down the mechanical parts first. Right now, we're just learning how to cut an onion, right? I mean, turns out to be actually, that can be done expertly and not so expertly, but it's something that most people can wrap their hands around, so to speak. Same with this. We understand that this is augmented 6, and we understand that there are 2 of, let's say, whatever key you're in, there's going to be 2 of scale degree 1 in the inner voices for now. So before we started manipulating this stuff around and changing the voicing, this is our starting point. So in other words, let's say I was doing this in G, right? Let's say I'm just making an example here because I actually really want to stop here, but I can say that, okay, I'm going to put 2 Gs in the inner voices here. And that's why I'm so fastidious when I teach people part writing to add the stems, because now you know that this is not an upper voice, this is an inner voice. I've put a G here and a G here. And you can go forward by saying, okay, sharp 4 in the key of G, that would be C sharp. How do you know that? Well, go back to your very fundamental skills and say, I'm going to do a G major scale. And I'm saying, okay, here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's scale degree 4, right? And I'm going to raise that. That will be C sharp then. And then I'm going to go to scale degree 5 because this is a sort of center hinge around this. And I'm going to say, okay, here is scale degree. So this is scale degree 4, yeah? And this is scale degree 6. And I'm going to raise this one. So that will be C with a sharp, also called C sharp. And I'm going to go to this one here. That is scale degree 6. And I'm going to lower that because you can see that's flat 6, right? And so this one here would be, so sharp 4 is C sharp. And flat 6 is E with a flat, or that's been lowered. If, let's say, for instance, it's important to understand that the spelling is not necessarily the same as what we're looking for. If you're looking for flat 6, for instance, it doesn't mean in all keys that it's going to be spelled with a flat. Let's say scale degree 6, let's say that has a sharp in it. Let's say it's F sharp, right? Then you take away the sharp, then you lowered it, right? In this case, and because I'm choosing my keys carefully, that means that E flat is flat 6, and I'm adding that here. Now you can do it too, because it's really not very difficult. I know that a lot of teachers enjoy making this very difficult. It's either because they don't really understand the topic themselves, which I suspect is the case very often, or moreover, even if they do understand it, they want to make it appear as if they're very, very smart. none of that or neither has to do with good teaching. So you see a lot of bad pedagogy from very smart people who just want to show off. Regardless, the students are not learning really. Good teaching is about presenting the right information in the right amount at the right time. Those three things have to come into place. Right information, the right amount of information, and at the right time. Here I can also move the G up an octave if I want to, and I can move this one up an octave. There are a lot of things. We just have to understand that in the Italian augmented sixth chord, 2 of scale degree 1, whatever key you're in, and this is a typical, very, very typical entry to grad school. You'll have, let's say, a progression that you're being asked to make. So make a progression modulating from D to A flat, involving a secondary dominant and an augmented sixth chord. That's a very popular question for entrance to grad school. And after this semester and the next one, remember that LRM 5 is a review course, just like Theory 4 in the olden days was a substantially, at least the way I taught it, it was a review course. We looped back and did everything over, but in super speed, and then adding, if we had time, we added some atonal theory to it. Here we have a much more comfortable 5-semester sequence and a 5-credit course that, yes, involves some music history, but the two are meant to go hand in hand.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In terms of like, just this is really quick, voice performance majors or like, you know, singers, literature materials of music does go towards our degree, right? Like it does still count. It's because I realize that there are some classes that are like electives and stuff that not necessarily would go towards the degree and stuff. And I just wanted to make sure that everything is fine in terms of that.
Yeah, don't worry about that. It's part of your course, so yes. Sorry, I just had to sit down. It will definitely count towards your degree. It's actually this, I would say, literature's materials of music is probably the cornerstone of all the music educations that we do. I mean, depending on the degree program, there's certain, but it's a course that all music majors take.
Okay.
Yeah. But moreover, if you're thinking of a career in music, no matter your degree program, you will most likely go to grad school at some point in your life. And this is where this comes in really, really handy. You may not know it yet. You may say, oh, I just want to get out with a degree and then never again. But the fact is that most musicians at some point or another come back to do grad studies. And at the moment, we don't have a graduate program here. We had all the outlines for it created. I know that because I did it. And then they didn't submit the proposal to Albany on time. And in between, we had a lot of financial problems that we are now coming out of. And so maybe in the future, we will have a graduate program again. But right now, we don't. So we have to sort of make sure that our students leave with the skills that if they want to go to grad school, say at CUNY or Manhattan School of Music or some other school, that they have the tools that they need for that.
Okay. What type of jobs could a person who's like, let's say for me, like a singer, or like, into like, performance on stage or like just making music like on the side, what would actually be a good course to like take like after graduation?
After graduation?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a finishing course called Senior Seminar, right?
Mm-hmm.
That addresses some of these issues. What are the next sort of steps that you need to take as a music professional? So that goes So some of the issues that are being addressed in senior seminar are, investigating grad schools, and doing some reviews and getting your resume written up in a good way, being able to write letters of introduction for yourself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I think that's probably the best course that I can think of right now.
Mm.
Anyway, let's wrap it up, guys, and say that this is an introduction. On Monday, I will give you some homework. And for now, this is all we need to know. Cool?
Cool.
Very good. Okay, see you on Monday. Actually,
Bye,
on
everyone.
next week. I think it's Tuesday for this class, right?
Yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay, very good. Okay, see you later. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Goodbye.